Can I have your attention? I think we're going to start. We are still sorting out the certificates here a little bit, but if you don't mind a little noise behind me, we're going to start because we have a full schedule and we have 2 hours. So, welcome to the Gloucester Historical Commission Preservation Award ceremony. It's a, oh, sorry, am I not close enough? Okay, is that better? All right, good. Again, welcome to the Gloucester Historical Commission Awards ceremony. It's a lovely night to be out, and we appreciate everybody coming. Hopefully you didn't get too wet or blown away on your way here. I am Ralph Pizzatoro. I am the chair of the Historical Commission, and thank you for coming. Just a brief overview of what we're going to do tonight. We're going to have welcoming and overview of what the Historical Commission is all about. We're going to have the award presentations, and there's a lot within that one line, and closing remarks. I'd like to thank a couple of people for showing up. Mayor Verga, thank you very much. Jeff Wordley, I think I saw you there. Jeff Wordley, our Councilor at Large, is here. And we'll get to you folks from the state in 1 minute. We have a special slide just for you. And there it is. So a little different tonight than past awards. The Bruce Tarr's office and Ann Ferrante's office have decided to also honor the recipients. So there's an additional 2 award certificates for everybody. In addition to that, the mayor's office also has a certificate for everybody. So by the time the night's through, hopefully you all have 4 certificates in your hand. That's the reason for all the sorting out behind me. They're trying to figure out what piles should go in and what order. From Bruce Tarr's office, it's at AJ. Yes, would you stand up and introduce yourself, please? Thank you, AJ. And, sorry. From Ann Ferrante's office, we have Nina, who is behind me sorting out. No speech from her. She's working. Let's see. I'd like to introduce the committee, the Historical Commission. We have, as I already said, myself, I'm the chair, Ralph Pizzatoro. We have Robert Whitmarsh, who is also working behind me, so he doesn't get to say anything either. Molly Hardy, would you stand up and say hello? Thank you. Susan Morali. Tim Quinn. Julie Travis. Is David not here yet? No, David's not here. Okay. David Rhinelander is also a member of the commission, but he is not here yet. We expect him, though. And then Susan Roberts-Wright. And just in case you don't know, everybody's volunteering here. We have no budget, we have no authority, we have no money, but we have passion. And that's what you folks have, passion to do what you've done within your individual projects. And it's a great work. And just by the presence of the state representatives here and senator tonight, it shows that Gloucester is important when it comes to history. It goes way beyond the city itself, statewide, and I would even argue nationally. So with that said, oh, I'm sorry, one more slide for me. If you'd like more information on what we do and our projects, you can go to the sub-site under the gloucester.gov site. There's a lot of information there. Please feel free to browse that site. We meet once a month, and we are still looking for a volunteer or 2. So if anybody's interested, please reach out to one of us at the end of the evening or during the evening if you can. With that said, Mayor, would you like to come up and say a few introductory words? Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. And I think we didn't applaud when the commission was announced, so let's just thank them. Absolutely, as Ralph pointed out, they are all volunteers, and they do have the passion. I think there's no question about that. So good evening. It's an honor to welcome you all on behalf of the city to tonight's Historical Commission Awards. First, I want to thank the members of the commission for their willingness to serve our community and for their leadership in preservation and celebration of Gloucester's history. Tonight is more than celebrating outstanding contributions to historic preservation. It is about recognizing the shared values that make Gloucester such a remarkable place: community, commitment, and deep respect for our heritage. You can see Gloucester's history in every street, every shoreline, every home, and every record. And it's thanks to the efforts of people in this room that those stories continue to be uncovered, preserved, and shared. From research, restoration, to hands-on work in the field, it all plays a critical role in highlighting and protecting our rich history for generations to come. Each of tonight's honorees have done the research, restoration, and work demonstrating their commitment to honoring and preserving our city's past. What's especially inspiring is that so much of this work is done quietly and with care, not for recognition, but out of love for this city. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for all that you do to celebrate our past and to share it with our community. I also want to congratulate several members of our team, the city's team, Mike Hale and Rose LaPiccolo from the DPW, Carol Kelly and Sandy Barry from our Cemeteries Advisories Committee, as well as Sandy Williams and Lois Hamilton from Gloucester's Archives Committee. The work of these two women and this group do such truly remarkable work, and I'm so grateful for their willingness to share their knowledge. Congratulations to all of this year's recipients. Your contributions ensure that future generations will not only remember Gloucester's story, they'll be able to see it, to walk through it, and to learn from it. Thank you all for being here and for everything you do to preserve the identity and history of the city we all love called Gloucester. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bob Whitmarsh, Vice Chair of the Historical Commission. I got the right slide. Gloucester Historical Commission comes under the Massachusetts Historical Commission. It was created under Massachusetts state law and has the purpose of promoting historic preservation and creating public awareness for the importance of preservation. May is Preservation Month, that's why we're here. So our presentation of Preservation Awards ceremonies are held in May to coincide with National Preservation Month. It used to be a week, and they changed it for a whole month, which is good. What a nice view that is. Gloucester is rich with its special topography and shoreline. This has led the city to have distinct neighborhoods which have a village feel. Gloucester's architecture, through its long history, has many significant styles that tell a story of who we are and about our history, which is local, regional, and national. Historic preservation goes beyond physical architecture to include written history, stewardship, education, outreach, and more. And now I'm going to introduce Molly, and she will introduce the first award.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's my great honor and pleasure to present the first award category tonight that recognizes the impactful and creative ways our citizens are working to document Gloucester's history. First up, we recognize the Cemeteries Advisory Commission for their outstanding work uncovering the identities of those buried at the Seaside Cemetery in the early 20th century. Sandy Berry is stepping in for Carol Kelly tonight to tell us more about the Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Commission's work. So if you could please come up, thank you.
Great. I knew there'd be directions on excellent. As Molly said, I'm the chair of the Cemetery Advisory Committee, and Carol is gallivanting around one of the one of those countries out there in the Middle East. And I have the wonderful pleasure of covering her slides for her. Now, this is going to probably come to us, as a surprise to a lot of people, because it did to the committee. When you go into Seaside Cemetery and you travel along the roads, you'll see, oh, there's a lot of cemetery stones here. But all of a sudden on the left, you'll see this big, open, rolling field empty of stones, with a couple of lonely stones in the middle of that pasture. I want to start with, when we thought about having a pauper's monument, we kind of said, is that a derogatory term, pauper? So I looked up the definition of pauper, and this is the definition. Okay. It is, a pauper was a recipient of government relief or public charity. And a lot of these people that are buried here in this field, maybe they came in on a ship and fell off the ship and were drowned in the harbor, which happened a lot. Swimming lessons weren't readily available back then. There were a lot of fishing accidents, and people really sometimes just knew a person's first name. Or there were a lot of women, for example, and children whose husbands were killed in accidents or lost at sea that didn't have jobs of their own and had to take care of children, and they ended up at the city farm, which is called, now the almshouse, which is down near the open door, and that section was a big open farm. Now, if you looked into that field that I was talking about, you'll see two cemetery stones you'll see Minnie Dunbar and C.L. Nelson. And that's it, just two stones were sitting there. Suddenly, we got a request from Sharon Cohen, and I don't know if she's here today, but she played a really pivotal role in this whole research project. A family somehow got a hold of Sharon and said, we know that our ancestors buried somewhere in the city cemetery. Here's his name. This is the year he was born. This is the year he died. That's all we know. Where is he in the cemetery? And with the help of our Dear Archives group, which we're forever grateful for in a lot of respects, and you'll hear more about that later, we discovered that Eben Devine was from Nova Scotia, and a small little family arrived once we got all the data together and brought some native dirt from his homeland. They played some Canadian songs, planted a small little maple leaf flag, and left some moving text on the stone. I was lost, but now I'm found. That small ceremony with these folks from Nova Scotia started, this ball rolling, And we began to look into, well, what is this all about? And it started to be an accumulation of names, people that were forgotten, and it became known as the Paupers Monument. Well, according to the archives and Rose, our other resource down at the city, the Public Works, we found that sure enough, here's a bunch of people. These are the lots. These are the maps. It was a little confusing, just a little mixed up, because we're talking about the early 1900s to 1930, and just a bunch of head scratching in there, and there it was. We had the old maps. We had the names. Okay, and we had some overlapping plots. Well, who were they? Well, it suddenly turned into 119 biographies. These are just two of them. One particular person died in a field in West Gloucester of tuberculosis, And then John was a freight handler on a City of Gloucester steamer, fell overboard and drowned. Okay, well, guess what? We know who they are and we know where they're buried. So what the cemetery committee did, I have to say Carol more than I'm saying now, because this is all Carol and Sharon and City Archives put together all of those biographies you just saw on the previous page and combined them all into this wonderful document that's available on our cemetery site. And I have to put a plug in here for the Cemetery Advisory Committee, because we're expanding to a couple more slots. We just found out tonight from Mayor Verga. So we're really happy about that. We have a lot of work to do. Well, that little seed turned into a vision, and it was going to be sort of a little plaque, or it was going to be sort of an intuitive screen, something that was going to be placed at the field. And along came Mike Hale, the director of Public Works for Gloucester, and he had a vision. And we didn't even really understand what that vision was. He said, "Give me all the names, and I'll take care of it." And I went down I heard that the plaque was in. Now I pictured a small plaque. I went down to Mount Pleasant Memorials, and I'm like, what? There it is. I could read some of the names because, we grew pretty familiar with the names. And there it was. It was huge. And while the DPW was installing the plaque, this is the plaque in its entirety, and it sits right there in that open field. While John from DPW was installing the plaque in the field with fellow DPW and men, we got a ceremony together, and it was well attended. It was a dedication to all the names, and it was a beautiful Sunday. Nope, it was a Saturday morning in August, and Mayor Verga gave the opening remarks, and we actually got a cloth and an unveiling, and he pulled the thing, and it was really important. We learned this, that it's important to read the names of any dedication. And it has to be said, and there's a lot of people here, and I see a lot of these people here, and I see Michael Hale way over there in the back with his classic baseball cap on. And I have to say that this project couldn't have been accomplished without all of these people pulling it together. It was wonderful. And let's remember that this plaque was given to Michael Hale, the Department of Public Works Director, and Carol Kelly of the Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Committee. And we want to express a heartfelt thank you to Sharon Cohen, Sandy Williams, Mayor Verga, Reverend Tyndall, Mount Pleasant Memorials, Rob Ranta, the Cape Ann Finns, because we needed to say and pronounce the names correctly. So we had we had to get that down right. Public Works Department, Mike Hale, Cemetery Committee, Sandy Chrismany, Matt Murray, Cindy Williams, Carol Kelly, and all the readers, Russell Hobbs, Sandy Barry, Melissa Hobbs, Sharon Cohen, Chris Maney, and 1623 Studios who recorded the event, and here's the URL to that recording. And I want to thank you.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Now we're going to ask that Sandy be joined by Ann Parsons, and they are both of the Cape Ann chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, to discuss the plaque commemorating the 1775 Battle of Gloucester.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Sandy Barry. I am the historian for the Cape Ann chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and with me is also Ann Parsons, who's the regent of the chapter. The plaque was dedicated August 2024. We thought about delaying it to this year, so it would be the 250th, but we just couldn't wait. So we dedicated it last year when it was 249 years ago that the Battle of Gloucester took place on the waterfront. Let's see. Okay, this has several years of substantial research. When you're putting a plaque up that involves the Daughters of the American Revolution, there's a lot of research that has to take place that's really, really important. And it didn't take years to do, but we had to get the okay from Washington, D.C. that all the facts were correct. The people who were listed were there and were indeed patriots. And we discovered a new patriot, which was wonderful in the process. So that was really, really, really a prize for us. Okay, I'm going to hand it over now to Ann Parsons for the next couple of slides.
Good evening. As Sandy said, I am Ann Parsons, the regent of the Cape Ann chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, known more commonly as the DAR. And it's an honor to be here tonight, especially in this beautiful building. The DAR, founded in 1890 and headquartered in Washington, D.C., is a nonprofit, non-political, volunteer women's service organization dedicated to promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and securing America's future through better education for children. I think we go here. The Cape Ann chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution is one of 40 chapters within Massachusetts. It was organized in 1925 and is today headquartered in Rockport, and we're celebrating our 100-year birthday this year. Oops, I shouldn't have gone too far. We, the members of the Cape Ann chapter of the National Society DAR, and many members are here tonight, dedicated the marker in grateful recognition of the significance of the site. And this chapter is grateful to have Sandy Barry as a member. This site helps to keep alive the appreciation of our heritage. Sandy?
Okay. And so on August 8th, 1775, 250 years ago, the battle was fought on the waterfront, and we felt that it was important to bring that history to light in Gloucester, because there wasn't any marker to this point. So 2 of our patriots were killed, Peter Lurvy and Benjamin Rowe, during the skirmish. And this is the plaque as it sits. And there was a rationale for the battle. And it basically had to do with we weren't obeying the rules. And, they were trying to put us in line. The battle took place just outside of the firing of the cannons outside of 10 Pound Island and hit the coast, all the way up to Colonel Foster's house in the First Parish Church. And if you get down to down there near the fort at the very end into the playground, you'll see the flag, the plaque, and the boulder, which is just really wonderful. And on that day, David Dow fired the restored Parrott rifle. So there's lots of data that you can read if you want to know more about this or watch the dedication ceremony. And we would like to thank Jude Seminara from the Gloucester Historical Commission, Stephanie Buck from the Cape Ann Museum, Mayor Verga, Mike Hale, the Director of Public Works, David Dow for the cannon, which he will fire every year on August 8th, and to the Gloucester Historical Commission for honoring our history. We share that passion.
Great, thank you all so much. That was very educational. And last but not least, in the category of documenting Gloucester history, we move from the 18th century to the end of the 20th with the Jonathan Bayliss Society. The Society's president is in Boston tonight, presenting on her father's work at the American Literary Association. And so I'm pleased to invite Dale Brown, treasurer of the Society, up to the podium to accept the award and to tell us a little bit about the work of the Society. Thanks, Dale.
Excuse me, thank you. I am very pleased to be here tonight, and I know Catherine was disappointed that she couldn't be in two places at once because she would love to be here and tell you more about what we do. The Jonathan Bayliss Society has a mission of promoting and enhancing and encouraging awareness of the writings of Jonathan Bayliss and encouraging academic scholarship. Which explains why she's at the American Literature Association meeting today. We have sponsored 2 panel sessions at that meeting. It's the national meeting, happens every other year here in Boston. So it's great that we had a chance to be there. So I was going to tell you a little bit about who Jonathan Bayliss was. Why don't I move ahead here? This is a picture of Jonathan Bayliss. He came to Gloucester, moved to Gloucester with his family in 1956 and remained here for the rest of his life and did most of his writing here and was very much an active part of the community and the civic community in particular. There were about 5 years in that period when he was able to support himself on a grant to do his writing, but other than that, he worked at Gorton's as their controller. He was very interested in management and analysis, and this was right at the time when computers were really starting to be used to help manage big corporations like that, and he was interested in that. And then later, he actually came to work here for the city of Gloucester, and he was an aide to the mayor at the time, and then became the treasurer, and again was interested in moving the city into the world of computers and management and that kind of thing. He always had a great interest in systems, which real students of his work tell us that you can really see that, and he gets very into detailed analyses of things and how they are systems and how that all works together. So we, as a society, well, let me back up a little bit. Talk a little bit about his work. He's best known for what's called a tetralogy, which is a work that's comprised of 4 novels. I don't know how many people in this room have read any of his works. He writes long, complex, can be very challenging to read. You have to read him for a while and get comfortable with not getting too hung up on your understanding of vocabulary and punctuation and grammar and whatnot, but but you can get into it. And he was a man of enormously wide interests. So everything from these systems I was talking about before to everything in the natural world. Of course, Gloucester offers all kinds of opportunities to explore the natural world, as well as politics and culture and civic life and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to be found in his novels. So the society, let me move up along here a little bit. Most of the outreach work that we do is through our annual conferences. Every year in September, the weekend after Labor Day, we hold what we call a conference, but it's 2.5 days, and it's as much outdoors, walking around, that kind of thing, as sitting in rooms. We do have sessions that are devoted to readings from his work as well as other authors, or talking about other kinds of art, or studies of the natural world. We pick a theme based on one of his many, many interests, and we explore it. It's very multidisciplinary. And this is an example of 2 of them. The conference we did last year was on granite and the sea. This primarily ended up really taking place mostly in Rockport because that's where the quarries were. But it was fascinating what we learned about how that industry proceeded, who worked in the quarries, what that work was like, how they modified the coastline so they could export the granite. I mean, it just goes on and on. It was really fascinating. 2 years before that, we focused on Dogtown. So there were a lot of walks through the woods, learning about the history of who lived there and the traces you can still find of that. So that was just an example of the variety of the themes. I was going to talk a little more about what we did in 2023, which we called Walking Gloucester. And in this one, we looked at the writings and work of 5 authors, one of which was Jonathan Bayliss, but the others were Peter Anastas, Vincent Farini, Joe Garland, and Charles Olson, all of whom were in Gloucester at the same time and had some interactions. And we looked a lot at walking around where they lived, the different parts of the community where they lived, and we had guided tours and folks who could tell us about those communities and where they lived and some of the historic details. And we also got farther afield out in Lanesville in one of the nature reserves. We had a walk through there. We also walked down that stairway some of you may know from the end of Winchester Court, I think it is, down to Spring Avenue. And you know, historically, I think that was more important when people may have lived up in the neighborhood, up near Prospect, and then would work down in the harbor, and they would get back and forth on foot. But that's just to give you a flavor for how we try and explore the history of one of these themes. It's not always deeply literary. This one with the 5 authors had more literary history maybe than some of the others, but so that really is how we go about it. We also, in that one, did readings of correspondence between the different authors. That was fascinating. We had volunteers who read. We did this over at Cape Ann Museum. And then we also had another lecture on the nature reserves. All of these, every conference is written up on our website. I encourage you, if you have an interest in digging into any more of this, we sort of summarize all the people who spoke and what they talked about. We usually have, we videotape the readings and any of the lectures, and those are posted on our you can find them through our website. They're posted. So we do try and document all of that. And I also would refer anybody there who wants to know more about Jonathan and his writing. There's a lot of referrals through our website that you can get that information. And we have many people to thank. We're entirely a volunteer organization. We depend on grant funding, so there are a lot of those mentioned on this slide. There are a lot of organizations in town that work with us, either in providing venues or speakers, that kind of thing. So it's really a community effort. So we're very grateful, and we are very grateful to the Historical Commission for recognizing the work that we do. Thank you.
I'm back. This is under the category of restoration and rehabilitation. The first in this category will be Michael McKerney, Carpentry and Contracting, and Daniel Chase. This is extensive renovation of a 1841 home at 1099 Washington Street down in Lanesville. How you doing? Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
That's to advance, and you can see what slide is coming up right on here.
Okay. So, hi, this is, so what am I doing here? Am I just, press this? There it is. My name is Michael McCarney, and this is my partner, Dan Chase. Well, I suppose this project, really, if you want to go back to the genesis of it, probably started in Paraguay about 30 years ago. Dan and I were Peace Corps volunteers there. We met as young men, and since then we've maintained a good friendship. Dan's had an interest in investing in some projects that I've found. He's relied on me to basically do everything. So I call and say, hey, what do you think? Or sometimes he'll call and say, what do you think? And this project, he called me and said, what do you think? Not that he knew about this specific project, but he wanted to do another project. So I started looking, and then this house came up, and I said, I found one. And as it so turned out, it was right across the street from where I lived. So we purchased it, and with the idea that I would go in and do a complete renovation of it, and we did. I completely gutted the inside. The outside didn't change too dramatically, other than the deck we put in the front of the house, but it's completely remodeled. And on the inside, updated it with all new electrical, all new plumbing, and just brought what I tell people, it took an 18th century or 19th century building and brought it into the 21st century, but still maintaining the envelope and the feel. And that's very important to me. The bulk of my work has been renovation of this sort. I haven't done a lot of new construction. So being a kind of a lifelong summer person of Cape Ann, and having moved up here about 20 years ago full time, I've always appreciated the feel and the character of Cape Ann, and I'm very interested in keeping that feel, which attracts so many people. Unfortunately, it seems to be, well, it's not as well respected by some of the newcomers that come here to live full time. But anyway, having said that, to the project, there's really, it was pretty much a traditional renovation of a house. I did add a third floor bedroom, which are or guest room, which are the skylights. And what else can I say about the project, Dan? What else can I say? Yeah, finish it soon. We're still underway. It's been about 2.5 years. I currently live there, and it's my residence for now. But yes. Yeah, I have left there are certain features to the house that I wanted to keep, and certainly the stairway going up as you come into the house, though I still haven't gotten to that. I'm still dealing with other portions of the house. But I wanted to keep that as kind of a focal point as you look at the house and look through the doors. You see this great old kind of winding stairway that's completely out of code, but is true to the era of the house. There was other features that I tried to hold on to, but it's a great project. It's a great old house, and there's still more to do. It has a big back lot that we're going to, continue working, doing exterior stuff, landscaping, so on and so forth. So, these types of projects, you could go on and on and on until you finally find the stopping point. Maybe, Charles, you can help me with that at some point. But anyway, I will say that when we started this project, Dan had jet black hair, and I had some hair, but no. All things being considered, it's gone relatively well, and I'm pleased with the outcome, and the community, the feedback has been tremendous. I certainly, when we started this, did not expect this, to be standing in front of the Preservation Committee, being acknowledged for the work we did. I'm truly humbled and flattered by it. It came as a real surprise when I got this letter, and I was reading it, and I'm thinking, okay, really? So I want to thank Ralph and the others who were involved. Thank you very much. It's a real honor, and again, I'm very flattered by it all. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
The next award will be for David Babson and Annalee M. Babson, Esquire. This is for extensive restoration of the circa 1765 law offices on 58 Middle Street.
Hey everyone, David and Annalee were not able to make it tonight, so I'm going to present their slides for them. They are the owners of 58 Middle Street. 58 Middle Street is in the center, in the heart of Gloucester's historical district. It's on the Middle Street, three houses down from the Meeting House. It's a 1700s gambrel. They bought it in 1994 and have owned it ever since, the current family. It's a mixed commercial residential, and it is right in the center of our historic district. Just a brief history of the Babson family and their relationship with this house. The house is circa 1765. This house isn't put into MACRIS yet, but it's now a new part of the project of updating our MACRIS submissions to the state. So we'll be doing some research on this house in the future. But the Babson family's association with this property started in 1875 with the birth of Roger Babson, who lived his life there. In the 1930s, his son, William Babson, took the property over and started his medical practice there after graduating from Harvard University with a medical degree. From what history seems to show, he had his practice there for a number of years and then sold off the property. It changed hands multiple times between then and 1994 when the Babson family purchased the property again by David Elmer Babson. He was a lawyer, and in the early 2000s, he fully renovated the property and converted it into a law office on the first floor and residential apartments on the second and third floor. He moved his law office there from Cape Ann Savings Bank. He passed in 2020, and his son's wife, Annalee Babson, Esquire, took over the practice of Babson Law, and David Babson Jr. Took over the property as the property manager in the name of Robert Babson Household LLC. So they've been associated with this property for a very, very long time, and it's been realistically passed down through generations. So this has been the law office, like I said, since 1994-ish, and this is what it looked like previously before the restoration. As part of being part of the historic district, there are very strict rules and regulations on what you can do to the exteriors of your home. So to do an extensive renovation like this takes an immense amount of time and effort and approval from the historic district committee. So I applaud them for going to this extent of restoration. They did a full exterior and partial interior restoration. This included fully scraping, painting the entire house, reglazing, and redoing all of the windows to be historically accurate. They redid all the doors and openings, their main stairways in the front, so all the hardscape and stonework, repointing of the basements. They added a huge granite hearth right in front of their the side entry. And then they restored, as you can see here, the side entry pillars as part of the restoration. They also did landscaping. So this is what it looks like now. I would advise all of you to go by sometime and just walk by and admire how nice of a job they did. They added 2 more parking spaces with red brick hardscape. It's all full cobblestone edged and has beautiful landscaping now with native plants, including a bunch of, sorry, I'm thinking of the word. I can't remember, but it was some really nice native plants in the front of the house. They updated the sign, repainted, and just did a wonderful job, including the patio in the back as well. So unfortunately, they're not here tonight, but that was a quick and brief, I guess, presentation on the Babson Law Office on Middle Street, 58 Middle Street. Thank you.
The next award is for Christine Swanson and Catherine A. Griffin. Extensive restoration of the 1905 home at 118 Washington Street.
Good evening. I am Chris Swanson. That's Catherine Griffith. You wave. There you go. We purchased this house in 2007. A little peek at how it started. Former residents, it was, the land was originally bought by Charles Noss, and his family were proprietors of the L.B. Noss and Sons lumberyard for 56 years in Gloucester. The builder of the house was Simon Garland, and apparently he built a number of other large homes in the area. So the Nosses were there until 1925 when it moved on to the William Glover Brown Jr. family, and they were the owners of the Brown's department store, sometimes called the Boston store, on Main Street, and they were there for 4+ decades. And then it passed to the Edna Catalini family, and various members of that family were there from 65 until 2005. And then unbeknownst to Catherine and I, the estate was in contest, and it was vacant for a couple years before I found it on Zillow. I was a Zillow surfer. Hi, my name is Christine, I surf Zillow habitually. And I was looking for a big old house that wanted some love, and I found it. It had all the things that I love in an old house. Fireplaces, that's an absolute must. You have to have a working bathroom and a fireplace. Fireplaces, oak wainscoting, massive windows that let in lots of lights, antique chandeliers, coffered ceilings, 5,800 square feet. What's not to love? I was fairly familiar with renovating. I had been do-it-yourself renovator since the late 70s. I renovated an old 4x4 square house on my folks' farm in upstate New York, gutted it, plumbed it, electrified it, sheetrocked it. I learned a lot. I learned to sweat pipes and hang sheetrock. That's cause for divorce. Anyway, I was pretty good at this, and I thought this was my 5th renovation, and I thought, come on, this is a big one, you can do it. No, I was very much out of my league. When I saw this house, when I came and visited it, I saw it finished. I saw family gatherings, I saw parties. Catherine looked at it and said, "Are you kidding me?" She saw the scope of the project, the expense, the time, the physical labor. I was a force to be reckoned with at that time, not so much now. But she humored me and enabled me to live my dream and to really dig in with a passion. Some of the things that were challenges in this renovation were the fact that it had been empty. Anybody who has had an old house that's plaster and lath construction knows that if you leave that house empty and it has water compromised areas, pretty soon you have a melting house. That was very much the problem here. It did not have a functional heat system. It didn't have hot water. It had a heat system. That's a little bit, I have to edit that. I would not have turned that on for the life of me. So in my view, it didn't have a functional heat system. You see the inset there, that is the electric service. It was a 20 amp fuse that looked like a big tomato can, a can of tomatoes, and a 10 amp fuse, which looked like a frozen juice can. That was the electric service. It had 4 bathrooms, including one in the basement. None of them were functional. The one on the first floor was a half bath. You could flush it if you had a bucket of water. It had a 6-year-old roof that leaked in every single valley. And it also leaked around, it's a brick house, so there's wood molding around the windows, the trim, set inside the brick openings, but the caulking had not been maintained, so it leaked at just about every window, and so it rained inside when it rained outside. It also rained in the basement. There was not as much foundation degradation as I would have expected, but there was some, and it needed to be addressed further on. There you are. That's the 30 amp electric service. That was the first thing that was addressed, was the electric service, because you could not run anything simultaneously on 30 amps. And at one point, the insurance company got involved because they did a walkthrough to insure you, and I had a 100-foot extension cord going from the new 200 amp service in the basement to the second and third floor with various webs. They said, "Oh, no, 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 you can't do that." So we had to begin to rewire. So up until 2020, I was still persisting in, I can be the general contractor and I will hire contractors. Unfortunately, I was not a local. And I made some misjudgments and got taken to the cleaners a few times. So in 2014, I partnered with Leanna Taft, who subsequently, she was drawing the plans of the house because there was no building plan. There were no permits drawn for this property that were on record with the building department. So she suggested eventually getting in touch with Howell Custom Builders, and we did that, and I can't say enough nice things about that corporation. They are kind, honest, accommodating. And Brian Hollenbeck, we did this in 2 phases. One was exterior, one was interior, and Brian Hollenbeck was truly a master carpenter. I could go on all night about those guys. This is a picture of some of the exterior upgrades. You see here Gloucester's Public Works. We're connecting a new sewer line and a new water line. The gas service had been updated in 2017 when Washington Street had its primary gas line upgraded. When we connected to that, it had to be a new line because our line didn't accommodate the pressure that was there. Other things that happened outside at the very beginning of the project were that the brick on the front of the house was no longer stable and safe. So we made a design decision to remove the brick and replace that with composite shiplap siding that was still in the genre of 1905, but served the purpose of being safe and watertight. It was, once that wall was open, of course, then it could be insulated from the outside and built upon. And that's where the three-season porch began. The chimneys were rebuilt and repointed. The front stair work was done by Peter Giordano in town. He did all of our stonework. This is a picture of, well, that's the scaffolding going up in 2021. It was a long project. This is the south. This is a four-season sun porch. The windows were completely rotted, but we had them custom designed by Anderson to look exactly like the ones that came out. Aluminum on the outside, however, and wood on the interior. This is another progress shot. New roof, new chimneys. The aluminum siding was removed, and then the porch that's there is the same footprint as the open veranda that had been there that was so water damaged and had degraded the front of the house. I've had lots of questions on people passing by about what colors they were. This is Benjamin Moore's Old Navy and Edgecombe Gray for the trim. These are the new granite steps out front, and you see in the inset, Peter took the field stone and then went up along the granite and made pillars for the new lights. The gate and handrails were done by Bay State Ironworks. This is a picture of the back wall, which was falling into our neighbor's patio and had to be replaced, rebuilt, taken apart, rebuilt, so that I could put a French drain around the back and the side of the property to manage the water, which was wreaking havoc. You'll see in a later shot why it had to have a French drain there. This is a picture of the kitchen, before and after. We removed a working pantry and extended the kitchen out to the west, and it accommodated a new island. It's all new cabinets, new appliances, a hardwood floor, but it also accommodated an elevator shaft. With our intent to age in place, basement has the laundry. You know, basement to second, third floor is a long ways if you don't have good knees. This is a picture of the third floor. You see the hardwood floor that was there. It was unrecognizable, but now it's pretty good looking. And this is a place where the family gathers. There's a TV there. There's a wet bar that was put in. The countertop of the wet bar is a slab of wood that's 18 inches deep and 6 feet long, and that's one board that came out of the countertops in the working pantry when the kitchen was gutted. So on the third floor, it was completely new construction. There's a tile and glass bath, a separate bedroom, an office, and then we built in 2 sleeping bays on the west side of the house that are perfect for grandchildren who can be in the same area, but certainly not in the same room. On the second floor, we gutted 3 bedrooms, added an ensuite bathroom, new plumbing to the original bath, and restored all of the hardwood floors. And in the attic, they put in a floor where there wasn't one, and they conditioned the attic, so they sprayed foam in the peak of the attic space, which is a stand-up attic above the third floor, and the air handlers for the second and third floor are there. And because all the walls were open on the second and third floor, we were able to put central air and heat without putting any of it on the outside of the walls. This is a picture of the elevator shaft. The elevator car is in the basement, and then you see a shot of the inside of the elevator. Also in the basement, along with the laundry, are 2 air handlers that feed the first floor with AC. Heat on the first floor, however, is radiators. We kept the radiators because they have a very nice, they're cast iron and they're huge, and they keep a nice even heat, and it goes with the look of the house. This is the picture that shows you how little our lot is on the north side of the house. It's just enough to house the 2 compressors, under which those 2 cement slabs is the French drain. So it's solid pipe from the back of the house all the way out to the front, and then it's perforated pipe, which now waters my hydrangeas. This is my small indulgence in this renovation, is an electric fireplace. It's in the wall of the elevator in the kitchen. A nice place to sit on a winter day. This is the inside of that wonderful porch. And if you look on the left side, you see a cabinet that's straight up and down, and that has little dividers in it that the windows can come out of the windows on the porch. It gets stored there, and the screens come out of the cupboard and go into the windows, so that it's a three-season porch. It's not heated, but it has wonderful ventilation in the summer when you have the screens in. This is a picture of the great room. To give that picture a little context, that fireplace, the opening of the fireplace is 54 inches wide. We replaced the damper in that. It weighed 300 pounds. It's cast iron. Catherine and I, a few pulleys, and a very strong friend helped us with that. This is a shot from the other end of the great room. It goes back of the house to front of the house. The matching chandeliers and sconces, built-in book cupboards, bookcase. This is the second floor foyer landing. It's a wide staircase up and across and up again. The oak wainscoting were decorated for Christmas there. The chandelier in that picture that you don't see much of is a cousin to the other chandeliers in the house. They're Schoenbeck German crystal chandeliers, antiques, which is a wonderful little addition. This is a finished product we worked very hard for, and I think that's about all I have to say. This is a chandelier in the dining room. That's my contact information. Thank you very much to the Historic Commission. Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
The next award will be Susan Morial, Mike Hale, and Rose LaPiccolo. This is restoration of the 4 1930 tercentenary markers throughout the city.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you all for being here tonight, especially Mayor Verga and the dignitaries. And thank you to the commission for this award. It took a team to get this project done, and I'm here tonight because of the support of the Department of Public Works, particularly Mike Hale and Rose LaPiccolo, operations manager, and the executive assistant to Mike, who was particularly enthusiastic about this project, very supportive. Also, thank you to Skylight Studios in Woburn for their outstanding restoration services. 1930 was Massachusetts' 300th anniversary. To mark the occasion, the state spent almost $2 million in today's money, erecting 275 roadside markers across 96 towns, including 4 in Gloucester. Each sign highlighted a piece of Massachusetts state history in just a few short lines. Tablets and their posts were made of cast iron with raised lettering identical on both sides so that passers-by from either direction would be able to read the inscriptions. The intention of the Tercentenary Commission was to capture the attention of Massachusetts citizens, whether walking past them or traveling by car. Today, many of the markers have been lost to time. As of 2011, the original 83 in Essex County, only 43 remained. Many signs provide problematic depiction of historic events, especially regarding indigenous peoples. Nearly 1/3 of the markers reference Native Americans as Indians. The town of Concord first covered their 3 markers and then took them down in 2024. Gloucester is fortunate to have all 4 of its original markers still in place. Our historical commission voted to leave them standing, as none use offensive language, and it was thought that they are historic artifacts in and of themselves, and that they represent our history as it was known in 1930. The project began in 2016 when my husband and I moved to Rocky Neck. I became intrigued by this rusted historic marker on the corner of East Main Street and Rocky Neck Avenue and set out to learn about it. It commemorates the landing of Samuel Champlain in 1606, just off the Rocky Neck shoreline. I learned that Gloucester has 4 such markers, the one in Rocky Neck, 2 in Stagefort Park, and 1 in Annisquam. Because of the visibility at the busy entry to the art colony seen by many residents and thousands of tourists, the Rocky Neck marker was first in line for a makeover. Among the challenges, first was to find a local restoration firm to do the work. It actually took several years of inquiries and quotes before Skylight Studios in Woburn was selected. Then there was the obstacle of funding nearly $15,000 for all 4 markers. In addition, there was the added issue of transporting the tablets, which weigh 200 pounds each and was not a part of the restoration service. After several funding attempts fell through and a few years of COVID delay, Gloucester's Department of Public Works came to the rescue. Mike and Rose are here tonight to tell you about the role that DPW played.
Thank you, Susan. As Ralph mentioned in his opening remarks, this group is founded on volunteerism. This is our jobs, and we look for projects like this when we can to assist. So essentially the role of Public Works, which was led by Rose in this, was to develop a purchase order with a foundry to manage this. And our labor would move the tablets. They would transport it to Skylight Studios in Woburn, remove the post to get it in better condition, sanded it, repainted it. And then when the signs were ready for pickup, we went to Woburn, grabbed them, installed them, and this particular one was covered before it was unveiled. You can see the transformation from just a short period of time from the old rusted sign to the new sign, restored sign, excuse me. The process for this, again, these are old cast iron signs. They were stripped of the remaining paint. They were pressure washed and sandblasted. Several coats of primer and paint were put on these signs, and the lettering, the border, and the state seal were all hand painted on these signs. There's a clear coat over them to protect them from the salt air that likely rusted the first one. So these signs should be here for a long time, and we are very excited to be part of this project, and certainly Susan and her team deserve most of the applause here.
The unveiling was celebrated at a community event last year on July 23rd. And again, I think this was Rose's idea to cover the sign. It was covered for a few days before the event, and some people in the neighborhood would question what was going on with it. The unveiling included Mayor Verga, 2 city councilors, Scott Mamard, Jeff Worthley, and about 40 onlookers. The Gloucester Daily Times covered it on the front page above the fold on July the 25th. The remaining 3 markers were installed just this week. You can see that the first house marker had been completely rusted, and now there isn't a trace of rust on it. The settlement of Cape Ann marker, only a few yards away from First House, is now also refreshed. Upgrading these 2 markers in Stagefort Park is very timely, as they'll be seen by thousands of visitors this summer who attend the reenactment of the Battle of Bunker Hill. Lastly, you can see here how the Planter's Neck marker in Annisquam now pops with color. What was said in 1930 can now be said 100 years later. Travelers who shall pass by may now read on tablets set by roadsides or in city streets tales of heroism, romance, tragedies, and the unfaltering faith of the ancestors of our Commonwealth. Thank you very much. Additional resources can be found on our website. I read the next one, right? I read the next one.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Our last award in the category of restoration and rehabilitation is the outstanding extensive historic makeover of an 1850s home on Rocky Neck. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Kim Smith, who managed the project for her parents, Gilman and Mary Hallenbeck. Kim?
Okay, here. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. This is such an honor. I've been waiting my whole life for. As a kid, I would always doodle floor plans and the fronts of homes and wanted to be an architect, and I don't know what happened. I don't know where that went south, but I worked in real estate, and I found myself always kind of getting involved in people's projects and, you know, dreamed of what we did. I never thought it would happen, but it's been a real highlight of my life. So I'm not a great public speaker, so I apologize. I'm a little nervous. So my parents purchased this home in 2000. It was one of the first 11 structures built on Rocky Neck. It belonged to a fisherman, Elijah Oakes Jr., whose parents lived next door and sold him the property for $500. Aside from its charm, the cottage was a mess. It had terrible wiring, terrible windows, water damage all the time. The kitchen was in the basement. The air conditioning unit was on the roof right outside our window. As soon as we bought it, the foundation on the master bedroom, which was in the back right of the house, needed to be worked on. They replaced some windows. They replaced some not so attractive windows in the back that were kind of like a 1970 look. And then they re-sided it. So this is what the house we bought looked like. My children and I and my husband, Matt, we spent every summer here. So there was all 7 of us in this quite cramped house because the second floor was really the attic that they somehow got a bathroom and 3 bedrooms in. So we decided in 2022, the kitchen was in the basement, which I never understood. My mother loved it. It was dark, subterranean. You had a view, but not really. And they were getting older, so I kept trying to convince them to put the kitchen upstairs. And they finally agreed. What was going to be just bringing the kitchen upstairs turned into a huge project. We also wanted to expand the living space a little bit. It was really hard to have company. My kids got older. I was sharing a bathroom with their friends, and we needed to rethink the future of it. And also we needed to modernize the mechanicals because it was just a Band-Aid. Every time something broke, it was just kind of piecing a little bit together until it broke again, and on and on. So you see here the original footprint. We just kind of tied in. The master bedroom is on the right, so we just kind of tied in that back part, and then a deck. So this was the fun part. I'm obsessed, like the Zillow lady. I'm kind of obsessed with designers and architects. And when a friend of mine, I live in Connecticut full-time, but her parents lived in Rockport, and she was going to renovate their place, she asked me for a few names. So I gave her a couple names. Carpenter McNeil was one of them. And what she told me was they were the only ones to call her back, which was the same for me, which I found shocking. And Mike Gray came out, and he instantly got my vision. It was just like perfection from the start. So I hired them, and I would do it over again tomorrow. They're all here tonight. Most of them are here. Can you guys stand really quickly? Chris, Ben, Danielle. We've become dear friends, I think. I love you guys so much. So the first challenge was we were not FEMA compliant. So when we first had talks with the building department, we would have had to either raise the house 7 feet, which I was never going to do. So we were kind of like, or you can do 50% of the assessed value of the house, not the land. So we were too limited to even bring a kitchen upstairs. So I don't know, I kind of like to dig deep and find a solution. And I had a friend, and I asked her, if she had any thoughts, and she told me about this attorney to call. He wouldn't call me back. I finally got him on the phone. He's never billed me, and he told me about this this exclusion for historic buildings. I would say it took me about a year to get this information. So we got this information, but people still were unsure of what it meant. So it had to go to the state level. They came back. They said, great, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do, because they don't want the house to be torn down. We had a meeting with the commission, and that went well. And the next thing you know, we had our building permit, and we started putting shovels in the ground. That's when it got fun. So Rocky Neck is very cozy, and this was a big day when the cement truck came. My one neighbor across the street, his office is in the 3rd floor, so he was always sending me pictures. So that was kind of a little terrifying. We bumped out about 330 feet on each floor. We decided to do the basement. We were thinking about maybe not doing it, but at the end, and at some point we said we should just do whatever we can do. So these are the footings getting poured. That is the master bedroom on that side. This is from Gary's attic. So we weren't going to take the 2nd floor off. We were going to do it in stages. But the back part of the 1st floor, we found out, was an old porch. So basically there was no real stability there. So we had to take everything off, including the back of the house. I actually thought it was kind of cool, but certain members of my family were freaked out when we pulled up, and as our friend said, we had clear water views from the front door. So this, you can see, is the blue is that was the original floor plan, and we just bumped out to kind of meet the end of that bedroom. The front right, that actually was a different home. So this was originally 2 homes. And funny note, there have been so many people that stop and say they've lived in this house. I don't know if it was a boarding house, it was a summer rental, I don't know. But anyway, tons of people. It made no sense, that part. It was like you walked into this room, you had to walk around the powder room, you had to take a right, go to the end, take a left, and it was this huge laundry room with no purpose. So anyway, we reconfigured all of that. We added another bedroom upstairs with an ensuite bath. And then in the basement, we added, the new part became a bunk room. So that's kind of where the kids go and have fun. So we just went from, we had more than 1.5 baths. It originally had 2.5 baths. 2 baths, 2 full baths, 2 half baths. So I also was very much from the start, I wanted it to look the exact same from the front. I wanted everything to look the same. I wanted to keep that same cottagey look. Funny thing about the house was my parents lived up the road, and we would always go to the Rudder or the studio, and we would always walk down the street. And then my mother-in-law fell in front of the house one day, so we were there for a while. And I said, I'm going to buy that house one day. And it came on the market, and my parents bought the house pretty much sight unseen. Fun fact. Anyway, so I really did not want to impede the views of the people across the street who have become my dear friends. So we worked really hard to do that. It's a little bit under 4 feet. It looks bigger, I think, because of the way the roof is, but it does look the same. This is the view from kind of the entryway when we were finally, I could get the vision of sitting in there and looking out. I wanted the front to all be the same as it was, but in the back, all floors, I wanted all windows, just maximize the view, because this is our view. It's beautiful. Every sunset, even in the rain, it's beautiful, except for today. So this was the back before, those beautiful windows, which you guys were thrilled when you gave approval. You were so happy those windows were going. So we did a fisherman's gable upstairs. We bumped out the first floor to tie in with my parents' bedroom, which is those French doors on the left. And then we moved the basement door so we can have access down there on the right. And that's what, kind of looks like that. It's prettier, lots of landscaping. Sorry, I don't have pictures. When we did this, we just had finished, so it was a little bit of chaos. So you get a sense of what it looked like before, what it looks like now, and then this is a picture of the finished product. Thank you very much. And thanks to Susan, who has been with me on this journey. When I wanted to get a plaque, she did all the work for me. She was so helpful. She's my neighbor.
All right, so our next category is landscape preservation. This award and these awards go to people who have done extensive work both in landscape and hardscape restoration, even down to rock walls and things like that, to preserve the natural landscape of Cape Ann. The first one I'm super excited to present and bring up Charles Nazarene. I'm the one who actually nominated this project. I was a huge fan of what they did at the Middle Street Meeting House Foundation, and yeah, I'd love to bring him up and introduce your slides.
Oh, okay, very good. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charles Nazarian. I have the pleasure of being the president of the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, and this project is one of many that we have done on the First Universalist Church in America at 50 Middle Street. Most of you are very familiar with, at the corner of Middle and Church. The building has been there since 1806. It's the last survivor, the oldest surviving church building in Gloucester, and was originally built to seat 600 people. We've done many things on the building, but restoring the green is the most recent, and we're just thrilled to have the recognition from the Historic Commission for this. So many, many thanks to all of you for that. There are many ways that this project came about, but the two ways that it was funded in about 85% or so was due to matching grants from the Massachusetts Cultural Council and from the Community Preservation Act. And I want to say a special thank you to the Gloucester Community Preservation Act, and to the City Council for approving this. Please give them a round of applause. There also were a few private donors, and in particular, donors of the 6 Princeton elms, which were planted as part of the project. As you may know, there are certain elm trees which we can now plant, and Princeton elms are highly disease resistant. We were able to get trees that were fairly mature, about 16 foot tall, to start. We were advised not to go bigger than that because they wouldn't take very well. But the donors of those trees should be mentioned. Stephanie Buck, Joanne Hart and Gordon Baird, Robert Tuffley, Pat Johnson, and Jeff Henderson, and 2 Lanesvilleans who prefer to remain anonymous. The design of what was done on the green was handled by Doug Cook of Land Design here in Gloucester, and he put together an astounding group of artisans to do the granite work lining the crushed stone alley, which runs right from Middle Street to the front steps. Plumbers to do an irrigation system for the trees, as well as a sprinkler system for the lawn, electricians for the lighting, very extensive concrete work in order to create ADA compliant walkways, which we never had, beautiful wrought iron work, and on it goes. It was just an extraordinary combination of people that Doug put together, and we could not possibly have done it without him. I'm also deeply indebted to the board of the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation. These sorts of things are not done by one person, and they are Karen Bell, Jerry Ackerman, Heather Atwood, Peter Calkins, Dick Prouty, 2 emeritus, J.J. Bell and David Rhinelander, and Reverend Janet Parsons, ex officio. And Reverend Janet has been part of the discussion of this from the very beginning, and wonderful to have such a tremendous partner working with her on the restoration of the Gloucester Unitarian Universalist Church and this green. You may know from our summer series, which occurs on the green every year from July until early September, that the Meeting House Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit that is dedicated to the preservation of this historic building as an entertainment venue, as a civic hub, and as a community gathering center. It was built for the first Universalist congregation in America and has an illustrious history in the separation of church and state and seeking the equality of all people. The project of restoring the green had many beginnings. One of them you can see in the next slide of what the elms once looked like. They formed a beautiful canopy over the alley and drew you in from Middle Street to the front steps and the front doors. This photograph is from 1933 when there was an arched sign over the doorway, which is no longer there, but of great interest. In the next slide, you can see the Norway maples that had been placed on the green during the late 1960s. These were actually a gift from the Corliss family. Unfortunately, Norway maples are considered an invasive species, but they did a great job of standing in for elms for so many years. And there were some people who were quite upset with us when we took them down. We were prepared for that, however. They were in such bad condition that people were tripping over their roots that were exposed. And actually, I was there one day when the first tree was cut that had been rotting, and I watched the termites coming out from the bottom of it. So they had certainly served their purpose and lived their life. Here's some of them coming down, and some of you may remember there was an article on the cover of the GD Times about, oh my goodness, they're taking the trees down, what are they doing at the UU? It took a little while until people started to realize that there was actually something wonderful that was about to happen. Here you can see the Princeton elms arriving on a rather chilly day. We were very, very excited when this occurred. We had spent quite a bit of time trying to find just the right trees, we're deeply indebted to Doug for having done a great deal of that work. Here you can see what it looked like after the trees were removed and clearing the way for the work to come. There, however, was a part of the project that is hidden from view, but is actually very important. We don't have very much parking for people on Middle Street, and we have an extensive series of concerts and civic events that run through the year. So the idea was that the lawn might also be a parking area when it needed to be. And Doug did some research on this and found that there was a material, a grid, that could be laid under the lawn about 4 inches thick in a hexagon pattern. And you could lay that underneath and then put the sod on top of it, and it would provide a place where cars could safely park and there would be no damage to the lawn. It was a rather expensive part of the project, but it allowed us to create a kind of a dual situation in which you can enjoy sitting there for a concert in the summer, but also all year long you can pull up on the green now, and we can allow that to happen. Here you can also see the granite pillars were, quite a few were askew, and all of the curbing had sunk below the sidewalk on the Church Street side and had to be pulled up. And here you can see what it looked like after the sod first went in with the first couple of trees up at the front. One of the extraordinary parts of the project was something that Doug insisted upon, which was to line the allée with the crushed stone with cut granite. This was a somewhat opulent choice. And he had somebody in mind to do this work who did an absolutely amazing job of laying this granite from Middle Street all the way to the church steps. And fortunately, it will help to prevent the lawn growing into the crushed stone, which was the bane of our existence before this work was done. And so we hope that for a long period of time, we can keep this extremely crisp look to our historic space. Here you can see an elm that was turning color in the fall, and I'm happy to report that all of them survived the winter. And in this photograph, you can see one of the two walkways. This one goes to the left of the facade and takes you down to the little parking lot off of Gould Court. It is also the path down to where the restrooms are for the summer series, for people constantly going back and forth, and also where our food vendor is during the summer. And it used to be a dirt path, which I always worried that people would have a problem with, and we used to have our two young assistants always there watching out for folks so that they wouldn't fall. There's also one that was added on the Church Street side with a railing, so that now if somebody pulls up on that side in a wheelchair or with a cane or a walker, there is now a safe way to get up to the green from Church Street. And here I am on the green last summer, towards the end of the summer, at one of the Music on Meeting House Green events. And I'd like to invite all of you. There are about 50 flyers or so on the table if you'd like to grab one on the way out. The series begins on July 11th. It will be raising money from free will donations for Town Green, and the music will be by the John Boboyan Ensemble from Berklee School of Music. This is our 10th anniversary of Music on Meeting House Green, and we are going to be celebrating all summer, and we'll have a formal opening of the Green probably for the last concert on September 5th, which will feature the K-Band Big Band. And a couple more photos. You can see what this looks like. Many of you have been there with us and partied with us. We couldn't be more proud of the series because of the way each one of them benefits a different K-Band nonprofit, features a different local musical group, and features delicious food from local vendors. So we've created something that the Massachusetts Cultural Council has told us is still unique in Massachusetts. Nobody else has been able to do quite the same thing. And it has really put Gloucester on the map with the Cultural Council in an absolutely wonderful way. So I'd like to especially thank everyone who came here this evening, invite you to join us. Here you can see the last concert of last year. That's September when it starts to get a little dark. We hope you will come again and celebrate with us on the Green. And thank you again to the Historic Commission for this wonderful recognition. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Charles. What an amazing project that all of the public gets to enjoy, which is a plus for sure. Our next recipient for preservation of landscape preservation is 7 Harbor Road. This is for the maintenance and rehabilitation of a 100-year-old wall and some beautiful gardens. I'd like to welcome up Kathy Fieldman, the owner. Just hit next one.
Where do you do it? Right here. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Ralph and committee, for sharing and recognizing our property. I would first like to see if I can get the slideshow going, and then I'll talk some more. This is first, here we go. Here we go, right? No, okay. Okay. Here we go. I shut it off again. Okay. Here we go. Enjoy. Thank you. I'm not nervous, you can tell. Again, thank you, Ralph and committee members, for acknowledging our property specifically the hardscape, which included the pergola, arbors, stone house, trellises, stone piers, and walls. The home has a lot of meaning to my husband and I. For over 30 years with help, we have tried to maintain the property because it was so unique and brought a lot of pleasure. Over 100 years old, it was originally part of a large estate, which was divided at some point. The garden, stone building, and hardscape were kept together. While it holds a special place in our lives, we also feel responsible caring for its future. We will try as long as we can. Whoever conceived of the design was genius. From every standpoint in the garden is a vista. All that said, many people have helped us through the years. We have made very few changes to the hardscape. We were tempted to make bigger changes at one time to reduce the maintenance. As you know, it's a lot of maintenance, but each part seemed integral to each other. Through the years, though, on the property, we have made enhancements that we think were complementary to the setting. Large granite steps, sunroom, and large shed are a few, but we were very careful how any change would impact the karma and visuals. A shout out and special thanks to many who helped us through the years. Scott Vanny, who helped rebuild the huge pergola, Jim Brennan, our first gardener, Martin Ray, master of gardens and hardscapes, Jonathan Poor, talented designer who knew the spirit and style history of our home, Neil Flavin, personal gardener, and arborist David Adams. Rob Benjamin, our lawn guru, Todd Holland kept us warm, Jim O'Brien, a builder I adored and trusted, and honorable and wonderful human beings, Paul Egborg and Jimmy Marr, who some of you probably remember, who watched our home when we couldn't be there, along with Marcia Patico. And finally, my most special thanks is to our talented, humble, and masterful carpenter, Tim Pierce, who can be found on my roof or under the deck or at our doorstep with one call. And of course, his wife, Missy, the best communicator when I need to get a message to Tim, who, whenever he can, would be piloting boats. I am grateful. Thanks again for your acknowledgement.
Thank you, Kathy. That was wonderful. You guys are obviously wonderful stewards of your property and are rightfully recognized. So, next.
The category of local preservationist pays tribute to a person or persons who promote local preservation by identifying, evaluating, or renovating culturally significant buildings or sites. This year, I'm very pleased to introduce Robert Booth. He's a historian, a book author, the former director and curator of the Manchester Historical Museum. He's being awarded for his historically accurate restoration of his circa 1750 tar box house at 47 Prospect Street. I welcome Bob Booth.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks to you for coming out and staying tonight. Thanks to the city of Gloucester for caring about its history in a way that most cities don't. And it is a tribute to the city and its consciousness of the importance of its history that we have this event tonight. And I want to congratulate everyone who has preceded me in their efforts at preservation. So, this little red waif of a house, which many of you thought you would buy over the past 20 years, apparently. In December of 2022, I was running the museum in Manchester by the sea, and I was living in Salem. I'm an historian, I'm an author, I write books about history, and I wondered why I had not already moved to Gloucester. So anyone who's spent a lot of time in Salem might tend to be spooked out after a while. Anyway, I do not spend any time looking at Zillow, Christine, but Christmas time of 2022, I decided to give myself a present, and I looked on Zillow to find a house in Gloucester, downtown. And I knew I wanted a project. I'd done 5 or 6 restorations in my time. I thought maybe I had one left, and I wanted to be close enough that I could smell the bakeries and the fish and hear the gulls. So I wanted to be downtown, and I got on Zillow, and 13 seconds later, here was this house looking back at me. So I called a guy named Mark Ventimiglia. 2 days later, we were in the cellar. And it was a house that was essentially abandoned, mortgage had foreclosed. There was no one living there. It was dark, it was cold, and the cellar was full of brand new utilities. It was incredible, not what you would expect. So there was a nice new furnace, there was a forced hot water system, and there was an electrical box that actually had breakers and not fuses. So who would have thought that? We got out flashlights, wandered around upstairs, got into the attic. It was an interesting remnant of mid-century modern, where some guys had taken pretty seriously the idea of a club room in the attic. When you have a gambrel roof on a building like this, and you may notice it's 2 rooms deep, so it's not as small as you might think. When you have a gambrel roof, it really is a 3rd floor. So I was looking for 3 floors. I needed a big study for lots of books and various projects that I was involved in. So here we go. I did some research. This is kind of what I do. And here's the Mason map from 1830. I had found that the land was purchased in 1752 by a man named Joseph Tarbox, who was only 26 years old. He was a mariner, and he disappeared after that. No probate, no gravestone. He was almost certainly lost at sea. He never had a chance to marry. And the next thing that happened was his father took over the house. His father was a housewright. So it's almost certain that this house was built by Joseph Tarbox Sr. as a project that he may have conned his son into doing the first time he got some money as a chief mate on a merchant vessel. Anyway, as you can see from this map, even as late as 1830, the town doesn't extend much beyond Prospect Street. That red oval shows the houses that were along the southerly side of Prospect Street. In those days, it was called Back Street because it was the back of the old harbor parish. And the street that's crossing there, the one that's parallel to the harbor is Prospect Street, and the street that's crossing is now School Street. And two little dots to the right is the house that had been built in the 1750s. So what was I looking at? This is a house that had wood shingles covering the clapboards. assuming the clapboards were even there. It had pretty much the usual problems of modern windows where the frames had rotted out. It had an unusual placement of a front door, I must say. And in general, the house was backwards. So in doing the history of Gloucester and looking at the architectural history before the Revolution in the 1750s, all of the houses downtown, regardless of what side of the house they were built on, faced the harbor. So this house had turned its back on Prospect Street since 1755. And I found that in the backyard, this vista is of what I had for the original front elevation of my house. The original front door would have been inside that little greenhouse area. Where the door was would have been a window. You can see that a window had been covered over, and this house looked away from Prospect Street, down over what was no doubt a beautiful rolling hillside going down to Middle Street with an unobstructed view of the sea and the harbor when it was built. But within a few decades, it didn't make sense anymore. The front of the house was now looking into a tiny backyard. It had all been built up. And so I thought the house needed to be reoriented. It was an antisocial house that was backed up against Prospect Street. So the first thing I did was to hire a man named Glenn White from Gloucester to pull all of the shingles off the house. And as you can see, there were the clapboards. And it was pretty much a complete set. And in many instances, the clapboards were quite early, if not original. And Glenn not only got up there and pulled all of the shingles, but pulled all of the nails as well. So that left me with a house that for about a year and a half looked like this, a crack house. It was and is across the street from the Benjamin Moore paint store to orient you, which I should have done earlier. My plan was to work on the interior for about a year and a half. And that's what I did. So nothing good happened on the outside, and it must have been a pretty mysterious project. In the summer times, I would leave the front door open because I did all the demolition myself. So I needed as much fresh air as I could get to try and stay alive. And in leaving that weird front door open, it turns out I invited almost every passerby in Gloucester to come in and visit with me. And that's why I was in Gloucester. I wanted that. It still got that sense that we're all in this together, doesn't it? So here's a look at some of my handiwork on the inside. And you're looking, it's not a split screen, you're looking at two different rooms. On the left is the kitchen. The kitchen had come somehow to take over the entire downstairs of the house. I'm not a foodie, I didn't want that kitchen. I got rid of several cabinets, and what I really wanted was to get it back to a parlor arrangement in the front. All of the ceilings were drop ceilings, and so anyone who is looking for a jolly good time, I would advise them to buy a couple of sledgehammers and a big yellow pry bar and go to it. Which is what I did in tearing into everything. All of the walls, all of the ceilings were covered in later sheetrock. All of the floors were covered in several layers of strange stuff with wall-to-wall, incredibly filthy carpeting at the top. So I want to give a shout out to the people who worked with me. I hired a very questionable general contractor and demolition man, meaning me. And the one thing I had going for myself as a non-Gloucester person was I was in the Cape Ann Men's Candlepin Bowling League. So I knew I could make connections into the world of contracting and construction. And I did. And the first thing that happened was I got Andrews Plumbing. Todd Howland has been mentioned here tonight. So Todd and Petey worked with me. My plan was to redo the plumbing and heating first of all. I did have a plan. The house was completely heated with perimeter fin-style radiators. So everywhere you looked, there were this modern metal, 1 foot high thing was protruding into the room. And so I went to salvage and got some cast iron radiators and redid everything with cast iron radiators. They did a great job. And I also decided to do 2 new bathrooms in addition to the 1 bathroom that was downstairs. I had Pete Albano and his crew as my electricians who showed up from time to time when they were needed on call, did a great job. I had Peter LeContro as my plasterer, and he did everything from blue board ceilings to walls. As I kept moving around this house, tearing out the sheetrock walls, I had Peter in there with his crew putting in plaster, blue board, and skim coat. And I had Edward Dunphy as my waste remover, and Eddie would show up every week. As I say, I was doing demolition, and I did it for 3 months. And when we were done, we had removed 2 tons of stuff from the inside of the house. So I'd been pretty fortunate in putting together this crew, but I was not able to find a carpenter, and that didn't bother me so much because I was still doing a lot of demolition. So now we're upstairs. You can see I've pulled up the plywood from the floors. There are the original floors below the plywood when I pulled it up in the oxblood color. And I found an entire wall of paneling behind the sheetrock. I also found the original fireplace, and I found as well that one of those panels had been added later on, and when it was removed, you see here's the original shelving. So this is all pretty wonderful and surprising. It took probably 6 months to get all the paint stripped down to the wood very carefully. And that color that you see is sort of a reproduction of the second color of paint that was ever applied to those walls. And there you see pretty much the color of the oxblood floor. And then, so downstairs, as I say, we installed cast iron radiators. You can see a few of them sort of standing around waiting to be installed, and some of them installed. You can see some of the old wallpaper under the sheetrock. You can see the drop ceilings are gone now, and Peter LeContro has begun to do his work. Sheetrock walls are gone, and pretty horrifying under all these other layers of flooring was really terrible spruce flooring from about 1900. So that had to go. It couldn't be saved. Fortunately, by this time, purely by coincidence, I had met the hero of this entire project, who is Joseph Napolitano, who is here tonight, who was given a lifetime award here, by the way, 3 or 4 years ago. And Joseph was good enough to take an interest in this project, and he was the missing piece. Joseph can do anything with an old house. He's had 40 years of experience doing it. The House of Seven Gables, the Witch House, most of the historical societies in Essex County turned to Joe as their go-to carpenter. So I was incredibly fortunate to meet Joseph and get him interested in the project. And here he is in a typical pose as we replace the floor with beautiful boards from a sawmill out beyond Albany, New York, that was still managing a woodlot and providing boards from 8 to 14 inches wide. So we got them down, and this is what we did with them. You can see the walls here in removing the sheetrock. In some instances, I did get the old plaster. In some instances, I got wooden accordion lath. It was always a surprise. Downstairs, when I pulled away some of the later junk, what emerged were two great big fireplaces and a bake oven there to the left that you can see the opening. The fireplace that isn't so easy to see on the right but is about to emerge was the original fireplace to the house in the 1750s downstairs, and had its bake oven not adjoining the fireplace, but in the back of the fireplace. So if you were to bake your bread or your beans, you would literally have to step into the fireplace to do your baking. So while we were doing this, I had been collecting salvage from southern New Hampshire, and this wonderful piece of paneling came out of a house in Newbury from the 1730s and was for sale. And I grabbed it and found that the mantle that you see was 11 feet long and exactly fit the space that I was trying to fill. So here you see one of the later fireboxes in the house. And to the left, I found, after we're pulling away the sheetrock on that wall, I found original wooden vertical sheathing. So I was able to match that with vertical sheathing from upstairs and finish the wall. All right, so this backwards house, it needed to be turned frontwards, and here's how it was going to happen. I had some sash windows that were also salvage, and Joseph made these window casings in about 2 days' time. And we started installing. We had the scaffolding up, and we take it down every day. And you can see Joseph at work, putting up new clapboards, because we had to tear up the old clapboards in creating new spaces for door and window. And then came the issue of the frontispiece, what most people think of as a doorway, which to me was a big deal. As somebody who's trained in historic preservation and architecture, I looked around and found photographs, but not the reality anymore, of houses on Prospect Street, gambrel roof, 2 rooms deep, that were pretty much the same period and style as my house, and they both had the same kind of doorway. So this is what went in, a replica of their doorways, and that takes us from the house, this orphaned house as it looked, backing up on the street in 2023, to a house that has been turned around and given a front that is at least respectable, if not perfectly accurate, to the history of this building. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Sure. All right. That was quite a packed 2 hours of information and projects, and amazing. Okay, we're a little over time, but not too bad. I'd like to thank everybody again for coming. There was one person and group I forgot to thank in the beginning. That's I want to thank the commission itself. I had a little accident about a month ago, and I was supposed to be organizing all of this, and I wasn't able to, and you folks took over, you jumped in, particularly you, Susan. You guys are great. I've really enjoyed working with you. Other than that, thank you very much, and you're free to go. Oh, no. What? Oh, I am so sorry.
Okay. It's stuck on the back page here. Okay, this is an award for Sandy Williams in Lois Hamilton, who happens to be my sister. Very proud of her. They have plus or minus 30 years of working, doing archive volunteerism, and they've worked with things dating back 400 years. And if you ever needed anything, the archives would be the place to go. If you can't find anywhere else, they can help you. So with Sandy Williams and Lois, come up. I don't know.
For what? My slideshow?
Pressed it and then again. Okay?
Okay.
You need to press any more.
Okay. So more than 40 years ago, I started researching my family in the city clerk's office with Judy Peterson, before the archives was even an organization. Starting in 2005, I began volunteering, and now here I am, the office manager and co-chair of the archives department. And I would like to thank all the archives volunteers, because every one of them is here, except for one. So you could all stand up. Thank you. Okay. I have loved my time in the archives and have instituted or supported many important projects, including setting up databases and other tools for family research, which continues to be my special area of interest. I am pleased to accept this honor on behalf of the City Archives, but also on behalf of the many volunteers who have, over the years, given to the city and in its records untold hours. With our hard work, we have been able to organize and provide access to volumes and volumes of important information and special interest to historians and genealogists. We provide free of charge information responses, way of mail, email, and telephone, as well as maintaining an office open to the public 5 days a week from 9 to 12. We continue to add to the resources of the archives through the organization and digitization projects we carry out. I want to take this opportunity to advocate for more support in doing the work of the archives, which remains unfinished. I would like to think that the honor of the Historical Commission Award is really meant to be shared with all of the volunteers, past, future, and whom the archives has depended. The recognition of the Historic Commission of this important work carried out by me and the other archivists, volunteer staff, is much appreciated. Thank you. And I would like to say thank you to all my sons that made it from Maryland, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, all over to be here tonight. Oh. I don't know, it's a slideshow.
Yeah. I'll do the slides for her. You want to comment on it?
No.
Okay. This is basically what she was saying. This is our new archives room that Sandy has designed for us after the fire. She measured everything and figured out what we needed in there for cabinets and everything else. This is some of the ones that...
These are the early, when I first early started.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and this is Sarah's retirement party, Sarah Dunlap. And this is what the archives look like after the fire. You want to comment more?
This is what we moved into. So, yeah, so there we are. So this is our new office. So.
Okay.
This room is we are working on. We figured out that after 20 years, we finally claimed it. We were supposed to get it in 1993. So we are now working on that. Starting in June, we're having them come to assess what work has to be done on it. So we'll have a new vault and all new carpentry and places for all the books that are stored in closets.
I'm out. Open this up. Thank you to the Historic Commission for presenting me with this Lifetime Achievement Award. In November 1997, I found an article in the Gloucester Times that said that the City of Gloucester Archives was having a tour of the archives. And I'm interested in a lot of things, history and genealogy, things like that. So the day I went, came to City Hall for the tour, excuse me, I was the only one that, at that time, and Mary Ray took me on a tour of the office and the vaults. I was working full-time at the Gloucester Cooperative Bank, and I knew I wanted to be a volunteer at the archives. I was able to volunteer at the archives if I give them a day and a half if I worked on a Saturday at the bank. So if you work Saturday, you got the previous Wednesday and Thursday morning off, and I would go to the archives. And on Thursdays, I would go into the archives, and 11 o'clock, I'd have to go to the bank. So that kind of worked out good for me. Let's see. And also, if I have vacation days and I didn't go away, then I would get volunteer then too. In 1987, Alan and Mary Ray were asked to create the Archives Department. They and every volunteer since then has made the Archives Department and Archives Committee what it is today. The first assignment I was to index the park, I should be doing this. Yeah, you can see the pictures here. Okay. I had to index the minutes of the commission, park commissioner's books. And we also, it's on my list here. Oh, and I soon found out that if other volunteers needed help with a request, I would be asked to assist them. This gave me the opportunity to learn all the ins and outs of the archives. I am fortunate to volunteer with an amazing group of volunteers for 28 years. And these are some of the volunteers in that time frame. Yeah. And everyone brings their own knowledge, ideas, and work together for the good of the archives. Some of the projects I did with the committee was to organize the school committee records at Fuller School. The Gloucester Timeline book, which we use all the time, and the Sawyer Free Library their timeline. They kind of took it from our book and added more to it. The World War II Memorial, and working with the Cenotaph Committee in identifying fishermen that were lost at sea. In the future, I hope that the Archives Department will have more spacious space in the City Hall. The records going back to the 1600s will be preserved, and that they have the continuous support from the city administration. Thank you very much.